Beloved, before the first breath of your morning and the final sigh of your night, there is one who holds your soul in his hands. When the world feels heavy, when your strength is gone and the shadows of doubt stretch long over your path, remember, God has never once turned his gaze from you. The one who spoke galaxies into existence knows your name, your pain, your story. You may feel forgotten, but he has written you on the very palms of his hands. Life will pull you in many directions, offering promises that leave you empty, but the only beginning that leads to true peace, true purpose, is to start with God. When you start with him, fear loses its grip. When you start with him, failure is not final. When you start with him, even the most broken pieces of your life are shaped into something more beautiful than you could ever imagine. Do not wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. Lift your eyes to the one who never changes. Come as you are, for his grace is greater than your weakness, his mercy deeper than your shame. If you would only begin with him, everything else will find its place. Starting with God anchors your life in unshakable truth, even when everything else shifts. Life is a river of constant motion. Seasons change, people come and go, dreams rise and fall. But there is one who remains the same yesterday, today, and forever. When storms rage and the winds of uncertainty batter your soul, you need more than fleeting motivation or human wisdom. You need a foundation that cannot be shaken. That foundation is God. When you begin with him, you are not merely adding a spiritual decoration to your life. You are building your existence on the rock of ages, the one who cannot fail, the one whose word never returns void. Without him, the heart is tossed like a ship without an anchor, easily swayed by fear, doubt, and the endless noise of this world. But with him, even when the earth quakes beneath you, your soul stands secure, tethered to eternal truth that cannot be undone by time, circumstance, or the opinions of men. Think about the voices you hear each day. The voices of culture telling you what success looks like. The voices of fear whispering you're not enough. The voices of shame reminding you of every past mistake. If you start with those voices, you will live in confusion and exhaustion, chasing approval that never satisfies. But when you start with God, you begin with a voice that spoke the universe into existence, the voice that says, I am with you, I will never leave you, I have loved you with an everlasting love. That voice silences all others. It tells you who you truly are, a beloved child, chosen and called for a purpose beyond what your eyes can see. When his truth defines you, the lies of the enemy lose their power. This world is fragile. Wealth can vanish overnight. Health can be taken in an instant. Relationships can fail, and careers can crumble. If your hope is anchored in these things, you will drift when they are gone. But when your hope is anchored in God, you stand on something eternal. He is the same in the valley as he is on the mountain. He is the same in abundance as he is in lack. He is the same in joy and in sorrow. And because he does not change, your faith does not have to waver. Even in seasons where nothing makes sense, you can trust that his hand is steady and his plan is good. Starting with God also gives clarity to your decisions. When you acknowledge him first, you see life through the lens of his wisdom, not your limited understanding. You stop reacting out of fear and start responding in faith. You stop leaning on your own strength and start relying on his. And when you walk in his ways, even when the path seems narrow, it leads to peace. Not the shallow peace the world offers, but a deep, abiding peace that surpasses all understanding, guarding your heart and mind no matter what happens around you. Many people try to build a meaningful life without God, but it's like constructing a house on shifting sand. When the rains come, and they will come, the structure collapses. But those who start with him are like those who dig deep, laying their foundation on the solid rock. The storms may still come, but they will not destroy you. You may be pressed, but you will not be crushed. Or you may be struck down, but you will not be destroyed. Why? Because your strength is not your own. It flows from the one who conquered death itself, the one whose love cannot be shaken by anything in this world or the next. Starting with God also aligns your heart with eternal purpose. So many life chasing temporary things, status, possessions, applause, but these things fade. When you start with him, you live for something that outlasts time. You begin to see your struggles as part of a greater story, one that glorifies him. You begin to serve others not for recognition, but because his love compels you. You begin to forgive not because it's easy, but because you know how much you've been forgiven. Everything changes when you see life from the perspective of eternity. And here's the beauty. Starting with God is not about being perfect or having it all together. He does not wait for you to clean yourself up. He invites you to come just as you are, broken, weary, unsure. He does not condemn, He restores. He does not abandon, He redeems. When you make Him the starting point, He takes your ashes and turns them into beauty. He takes your weakness and fills it with His strength. He takes your emptiness and pours in His presence until you overflow with hope. Even when the world seems to unravel, when everything familiar shifts beneath your feet, you can stand firm because your life is rooted in the one who cannot be moved. The truth of who He is will hold you steady. The promises He has spoken will never fail. The love He has given will never end. So start with Him. Start your day with Him. Start your decisions with Him. Start your dreams with Him. And when the end of your journey comes, you will see that starting with God was not just the best choice, it was the only choice that gave your life unshakable meaning. Would you like me to add a short, powerful prayer at the end to close this speech beautifully? His presence transforms weakness into strength and emptiness into purpose. We live in a world that glorifies self-sufficiency, a culture that tells us to hide our flaws, to cover our pain, and to pretend we have it all together. Yet deep inside, every heart knows the weight of weakness. We know what it feels like to come to the end of ourselves, to face situations we cannot fix, to encounter moments that strip us of pride and leave us exposed. And it is in that place where our strength runs out that God steps in. His presence does not demand perfection. It meets us in our imperfection. He does not come to the self-assured and the strong, but to the broken, the weary, the ones who whisper through tears, I cannot do this alone. In that confession, in that surrender, His power begins to flow. When we are weak, His strength does not simply supplement ours. It replaces it. It lifts what we cannot carry. It accomplishes what we cannot achieve. Think of the countless moments in Scripture where God revealed His strength through human weakness. Moses, a man who stuttered, was called to speak before kings. David, a shepherd boy overlooked by his own family, was anointed to slay giants and lead a nation. Paul, a man plagued with a thorn in the flesh, learned that God's grace was sufficient and His power made perfect in weakness. The pattern is clear. God delights in using the fragile to display His glory, because when the outcome is greater than our ability, only He can get the credit. His presence is not only a source of strength, it is the very place where emptiness is filled. So many walk through life feeling hollow, achieving success yet feeling unsatisfied, surrounded by people yet feeling lonely, busy yet feeling purposeless. Emptiness is not about the absence of activity, but the absence of meaning. And meaning is only found in the one who created you. When His presence fills your life, you discover you were never meant to live on your own terms. You were designed for Him, and apart from Him, even the greatest accomplishments feel like dust. But when He is at the center, even the smallest acts carry eternal weight. His presence takes what feels like a wasteland and turns it into a garden. It takes the ashes of regret and shapes them into a testimony of grace. It takes seasons of waiting and weaves them into a greater plan you cannot yet see. What once felt empty, your pain, your disappointments, your failures, becomes the very place where His glory is revealed. He does not waste a single tear. He redeems what you thought was lost. He breathes life where you thought only death remained. When you abide in Him, fear loses its hold. Anxiety quiets in the light of His peace. Confusion yields to His wisdom. You begin to realize that your weakness is not a curse, but an invitation, a sacred doorway for His power to dwell. You do not have to pretend to be strong because His strength is enough. You do not have to fill the void with things that will never satisfy because His presence is the fullness of joy. It is in His nearness that you find what your soul has always been searching for, rest, assurance, and purpose that cannot be shaken by circumstance. The enemy wants you to believe that your weakness disqualifies you, that your emptiness makes you unworthy. But God says the opposite. It is your weakness that qualifies you to experience His strength. It is your emptiness that makes room for His presence. As long as you cling to your own ability, you will never taste the depth of His power. But when you finally let go, when you finally fall into His hands, you find that His grace is deeper than your failure, His mercy wider than your shame, and His love stronger than anything that has ever broken you. The truth is, you were never meant to be self-reliant. From the very beginning, humanity was created to walk with God, to depend on Him, to live in the constant flow of His presence. Sin separated us, leaving us striving, restless, and empty. But through Christ, the way back to that presence has been opened. He took our weakness on Himself. He embraced our emptiness on the cross. And through His resurrection, He offers us His very life. This is why Paul could say, when I am weak, then I am strong. Because it was no longer his own strength that sustained him, but the very power of God living within. His presence not only transforms individuals, but also overflows into the lives of others. When you allow him to fill your emptiness, he makes you a vessel of hope for those still lost in the dark. When you allow him to redeem your weakness, your story becomes a testimony that encourages the weary. What once was your place of pain becomes someone else's place of healing. What once felt like a season of loss becomes a seed of purpose that bears fruit beyond what you imagined. So do not despise your weakness. Do not run from your emptiness. Bring it to him. Let him take the very things you wish you could erase and show you how they can become the most beautiful part of your journey. Let him teach you that true strength is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of God in the midst of it. Let him show you that purpose is not something you create through striving, but something you receive through surrender. There is a freedom that comes when you stop pretending to have it all together and simply rest in him. There is a joy that comes when you stop chasing things that cannot satisfy and instead drink deeply of his love. There is a power that comes when you realize it is not about what you can do for him, but what he can do through you. And there is a peace that comes when you know that even in your weakest, most empty moments, you are still held, still loved, still chosen, and never forsaken. Would you like me to write a brief, heartfelt prayer at the end of this one too, to make it a complete devotional moment? When you put him first, you will never be last in what truly matters. Life is full of pursuits, endless goals that call for your attention, career achievements, financial stability, relationships, recognition, and comfort. The world tells you that if you don't push ahead, if you don't hustle and strive, you'll fall behind. But in the midst of all the noise, there is a quiet and eternal truth. When God is first in your life, you will never truly be behind. You may not always have what others seem to have. You may not move as quickly as the world demands, but you will have what matters most. The favor, the peace, the purpose, and the fulfillment that only he can give. For when you put him at the center, everything else falls into its rightful place. Putting him first means seeking his presence before you seek solutions, seeking his will before your own desires, and trusting his timing even when it doesn't align with your plans. It means acknowledging that your life is not your own but his, surrendered to his higher wisdom. And when you choose him above all, you gain what the world cannot offer. You gain clarity in confusion, strength in weakness, and joy even in sorrow. The things others chase to fill their emptiness, wealth, applause, power, become secondary because your soul has already found its true treasure in him. You see, the world measures success by what you accumulate, but heaven measures it by what you surrender. And when you surrender your plans, your time, and your heart to God, you open the door for him to lead you into a life richer than anything you could design for yourself. Jesus said, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." This doesn't mean life will be free of challenges, but it does mean that you will never lack what you truly need. When God is first, he aligns every detail of your life to work for your good and his glory. Many strive to be first in the eyes of others, to be noticed, applauded, and admired. But how often do those pursuits leave people feeling empty? They achieve the promotion but lose their peace. They gain recognition but forfeit their joy. They win the race only to realize they were running toward the wrong finish line. But when you put God first, you live for a prize that never fades. You discover that the highest position you can hold is not one of power over others, but one of humility before him. And in that humility, he lifts you up in ways that truly matter. He lifts your character, your integrity, your faith, and your eternal reward. Putting God first also reshapes your priorities. It makes you love differently. You begin to value people over possessions, relationships over recognition, and eternal impact over temporary comfort. You become more generous because you trust that your provision comes from him. You forgive more freely because you remember how much you've been forgiven. You serve without seeking praise because you know you are serving the one who sees in secret and rewards openly. In a world obsessed with self, you become a reflection of his love, and that is never last in the eyes of heaven. When God is not first, life feels scattered. You find yourself pulled in every direction, trying to satisfy every demand. But when he is first, everything else falls into order. Your work is no longer just work, it becomes worship. Your relationships are no longer just connections. They become opportunities to show his grace. Your struggles are no longer just obstacles. They become testimonies of his faithfulness. You live with a sense of purpose that cannot be shaken, even when life does not go as planned. And yes, putting him first often means making choices that look foolish to the world. It may mean choosing integrity over quick success, faith over fear, obedience over convenience. It may mean walking away from things others call valuable because you know they would cost you your soul. But you will never regret those choices because the reward of pleasing God far outweighs the approval of people. His blessing, His presence, His eternal promise is greater than anything this world can offer. It is impossible to lose when God is first. Even when you feel like you're behind, even when you see others advancing in ways you aren't, you are not truly last because His timeline is perfect. He knows the seasons of your life. He knows when to open doors and when to close them. He knows what you need more than you know yourself. When you trust Him above all, you stop competing with others because you understand that your journey is unique and guided by His hand. The beautiful irony is this: when you stop striving to be first in the world and simply put Him first, He places you in the very center of His will, the safest, strongest, and most fulfilling place you could ever be. You may never be first in the eyes of men, but you will be first in what truly matters. Peace with God, a heart anchored in His love, a legacy that points others to Him, and an eternity secured in His presence. So ask yourself, what sits on the throne of your heart today? Is it your career, your dreams, your fears, your relationships, or is it Him? Because only one can truly be first. And when it is God, everything else aligns. When it is Him, you will not be tossed by the storms of life. When it is Him, you will never lack what is essential. When it is Him, even what looks like loss becomes gain. Choose Him today, not just in words, but in your decisions, in your priorities, in your daily moments. Seek Him when no one is watching. Honor Him when it costs you something. Trust Him when the road is unclear, and you will see that no matter where you stand in the eyes of the world, in the kingdom of God, you are never last. You are deeply loved, fully known, and eternally secure. That is the reward of putting Him first. Would you like me to write all 3 expanded messages together in one seamless sermon-style flow so they feel like a powerful single message? So let this truth settle deeply in your heart. When you put God first, when you surrender your weakness to His strength, when you invite His presence to fill your emptiness, your life is never the same. You are no longer living for the fleeting applause of men, but for the eternal approval of the one who loves you beyond measure. You stop striving to be enough, because you realize He has always been enough for you. The world may not understand your choices. They may call you last because you refuse to compromise. They may overlook you because you do not chase what they chase, but in heaven's eyes, you are never behind. You are right where He has called you to be, walking in the fullness of His plan, anchored in His truth, strengthened by His grace, and guided by His unfailing love. So lift your eyes. Stop worrying about what you cannot control and start trusting the one who holds it all. When you begin with God, when you stay with Him, and when you finish with Him, you will find that you never truly lose. In Him, you will always gain what matters most: peace, purpose, and the promise of eternity.